So last we left off talking about this portrait of Fräulein Lisa that went up at auction at Im Kinski Auction House in Vienna in 2024. We were discussing the current lawsuit that dropped this month because one of the descendants of the Lisa family believes that she was left out of a settlement deal. It's very messy. I'm not a lawyer. I have PhD after my name, not JD. So I'm less interested in the legal complexities of the case and who was left out of the settlement than I am in what came after the New York Times article, which was a statement that says who is pictured in the portrait is more than just a matter of art history and family legacy. But it's all about the art history, baby. So let's talk about it. The year is 1913 in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and in the capital of Vienna, one Berta Zuckerkandel is hosting the hottest salons possible. She's inviting Klimt. She's inviting Mahler. This work is actually not painted by Klimt. It's painted by Anton Kolin, but it captures that same frenetic energy of Austrian and Viennese modernism that Klimt is in the same wheelhouse as. So Berta is hosting these salons. And the reason that we know about a specific salon in March of 1913 is because of one Arthur Schnitzler and his diary. You may not be familiar with that name, but you are definitely familiar with what he inspired. Because his dream story was the primary inspiration for Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. So that gives you some idea of what Viennese modernism is going for in sort of its transcendentalism and weirdness. Case in point, see Gustav Klimt. Now, this is a Luke. Gustav Klimt, starting to run out of money, needs new clients. Berta has the hottest salon in Vienna. And who is at that March 1913 salon that Arthur Schnitzler is writing about? But one Lily Leser, who we already talked about in the last video as this grande dame of Viennese society. And she has two daughters, Helene and Annie. And this is circumstantial evidence, but she's the great art patron of her family. She's in circles with people like Berta, who is a great champion of Klimt, and also Mahler. And here she is talking him up at a party with somebody who will potentially become a client. And we know that Lily is exactly the type of client that Klimt will turn to when he needs money, as the Austrian currency is devalued because of World War I. So one of the girls in 1917 goes and sits for Klimt about 9 times. Unfortunately, Klimt is one of the worst note takers I've ever seen. And so he really puts LIS and then some sums of money down for the amounts of money that he receives from either Lily Leser or her ex-brother-in-law, Adolf Leser. Lily and her husband, Justus Leser, were divorced as of 1905. We don't know what her relationship with Adolf Leser is, and I haven't been able to find anywhere if her relationship was close with him, which would kind of determine whether or not she would in any way have a portrait of her niece, Margareta, in her house. And we know that the portrait is in her house, which I'm going to turn to. This drawing is in the Leopold Museum in Vienna, and it is currently named a portrait of Margareta Constanz Leser. That is the daughter of Adolf Leser and his wife Sylvia, so the other branch, not Lily Leser. This is the cousin to Helene and Annie. The Kinski Auction House refers to this as a portrait of Fräulein Leser, and we can see that same round face and the ornamented shawl. And there are several studies like this, and it should probably be renamed by the museum based on the hard evidence that we have that Lily Leser was the only person known to have owned the portrait by Klimt before the Anschluss of 1938. This is the only picture that we have of the painting from before 1938, the Anschluss, when the Nazi regime took over Austria and annexed it into their Third Reich. So it is a hard piece of evidence. And the reason that we have it is because the portrait of probably Helene or Annie Leser was requested for loan for an exhibition. And where was it requested from? It was requested from Lily Leser's mansion on the Argentinierstrasse. It was not requested from the other side of the family. And by that point, Adolf Leser had passed away. There's a chance that the painting had been left to Lily in his will. But again, she had been divorced from Adolf's brother since 1905. So why would that have been the case? There's that exhibition advertisement. It opened in 1926 at the Neue Gallery, which was trying to be the home for Viennese modernism. This is from the archive of the Belvedere Gallery in Vienna. And it is really good evidence that this is a portrait of one of the descendants of Lily Leser. And so this is not saying that Miss Leahy does not have a right to part of the settlement. This is not me speaking to the legal case in any way, but this is speaking up in favor of who the painting should be said to be of, and speaking up in favor of art history as a tool for clarifying arguments in court. You can argue that you are a legal descendant without being so dismissive of another discipline. I want to show you this picture of Annie. She's the younger daughter. She's not thought to be the one in the painting, but sister of Helen. And you can kind of see the genetic inheritance here. She was an expressive dancer. And so we have this picture of her because she was a public figure known in Vienna for her performance. But you can see in her face that those are the features of the woman in the painting. Personally, after all is said and done, I would love to see our girl in a museum so that we can all discuss the true history of the portrait of Fräulein Lise together.